What's happening, Raiders of the Lost podcast fans? We are at Comic-Con here representing and checking out Alien Earth with FX and Hulu. They're letting us interview the cast. We checked out the first episode. One of our all-time favorite franchises, Alien in general. Anthony, you happy to be here?
Yeah, I love Comic-Con. It's super cool, and we have this amazing podcast space thanks to FX and Hulu. And Alien is one of the most fascinating franchises in the world of cinema that we're huge fans of. Noah Hawley is bringing some really cool stuff to the new Alien Earth TV series that I think fans are going to love. A lot of great callbacks, a lot of great world building, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the rest of the season has in store.
There's a lot of pros and cons to, we have a prestigious film IP that's never really tapped into television before. It's not the first time this has happened. Noah's actually adapted TV series from movies before with Fargo. And we're excited to talk to him. We're going to interview Noah Hawley and Sam Blenkin in just a few minutes, but it's exciting to see what you can create when you take this beloved IP that's so rich with expansion and lore and just mining it for all kinds of cool ideas, bring it to the smaller screen, but it's prestige television with FX and Hulu. FX has been putting out great shows for decades. I really enjoyed the first episode. It's really interesting. So many great homages to the original Alien film. But for me, it felt like the Super Mario Bros. Movie where like every nugget of like from different games or movies from past Mario is like stuffed in there.
Yeah, and it's funny because we grew up watching this franchise. I think we were more into the AVP movies because we were like 11 when the first AVP came out. I remember seeing that. We loved Predator and Aliens because of our brother showing us Predator in the 90s. But as we've grown older, being able to see what Ridley Scott did with the first film and the world building and the creature building with H.R. Giger's amazing work as an artist, and then what James Cameron, how he built upon that, expanding it. I love that meme of the guy on Letterboxd watches Alien, says, "I wish there was more aliens in it." Gave it like a 2-star rating. Then he logs Aliens. He says, "Holy shit,
5 stars,
5
Aliens."
stars.
And also, I like the story where people were trying to get a sequel to Alien made for years. 20th Century Fox was trying to do it for like a decade. Then James Cameron comes in. He writes Aliens on a whiteboard. Then he puts 2 slashes down, vertical slashes across the S for a money sign. So Aliens with the money sign, because that's how they got the studio to make the second film, basically. And we adore Alien and the entire franchise. You all know how much we love facehuggers. Xenomorphs, the perfect organism. And before we talk more about the franchise, just take a few minutes. Check out our interview with series creator and director Noah Hawley, as well as Sam Blenkin, who plays one of the main characters in the series Alien Earth on FX and Hulu.
Before we get into the interview, we just wanted to say thank you to FX for bringing us down to Comic-Con and providing us with this amazing space to record the podcast. FX's Alien Earth is all new Tuesdays on FX, stream on Hulu.
All right, we're joined by series creator of Alien Earth, Noah Hawley, and actor Samuel Blenkin. Congratulations on the show, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Fantastic. So, Noah, how'd you balance paying homage to Alien, the entire franchise's gritty, claustrophobic roots, as well as setting it on Earth instead?
Yeah, I mean, having adapted Fargo, which everyone agreed was the worst idea anyone had ever had, it was, this felt like a great idea in comparison, as long as I understood that a television show and a 2-hour survival story are different, and so I needed to create something that in success is going to be a modern myth with almost like an epic sci-fi story. So it needed to be populated with characters, etc. And but there's something about that first movie is such a 70s movie, right? And then James Cameron's movie is such an 80s movie, and somewhere between there is this retro-futuristic aesthetic and class warfare story that I knew if I drilled down on those two things, it would just feel really authentic.
Sam, there's so many famous monsters in the Alien franchise. What was it like seeing xenomorphs and facehuggers on set in person?
Terrifying. It felt really real, and a lot of us have been saying that here when we've been talking to people. But it really, the immersiveness of those sets was one thing. Like just being able to walk around, there's not much acting required. When you're faced with something that looks like animatronic, like that mouth, and then the second mouth, and yeah. It was truly amazing, and a franchise that's so ingrained for me personally into seeing the first film at quite a young age, and that fear came back pretty quick. Yeah.
And speaking of the sets, Noah, fans of this franchise are going to see sets that they love. What was it like building those and actually being able to film on them?
Yeah, I mean, we were very true to the blueprints from the Nostromo and creating this Maginot ship. There were a couple of things we scaled up a little bit, the cryo chamber and the communications room, but the mess hall, the bridge, those are the hallways, those are exact replicas of Ridley's sets, and to the degree that when Ridley watched that first hour, the report is he said, "Fuck me," and we were able to unearth in the Disney archives, production photos that Ridley hadn't seen since 1979. So what I said to Ridley early on, I was like, I'm adapting your movie, right? That's the feeling of it, because even when he went and did Prometheus, which is a prequel to Alien, he's like, I'm not going to do the retrofuturism. I'm going to go and use this modern technology. But for me, after 40 years, there's no Alien without green ASCII text.
Yeah, and speaking of Alien, the opening of the series is terrific. We've seen that movie 30 times and immediately shot for shot, like homage to that first film. What was the motivation by doing kind of a shot for shot sequence with different characters?
Well, it's different than making a sequel, right? A sequel sort of already has its right to exist baked in, but when you go from the big screen to the small screen, and again, I did this with Fargo, authenticity is critical. The fans, they're going to know in the first minute whether you understand what Fargo is, whether you understand what Alien is, right? And I feel like that opening sequence, with its pacing and sort of Altman-esque overlapping dialogue and space trucker, mundanity. We didn't do it for 40 minutes. We did it for 4 minutes, but which is the modern equivalent. But it convinces the audience, I think, that we know what Alien is, right? And then we can bring in the new elements of the show.
Yeah.
Sam, there's a lot of mystery around your character. Love the performance. And we love the design too, the look, the wardrobe, the mannerisms. Can you break down the design of the character, how involved you were in it, and what you did for the performance?
Well, yeah, the thing that's coming closest to my mind is obviously, I'm sure you guys saw from the first episode, there's this Peter Pan theme going on about children and the mind of a child and children not growing up and what it means to be human and what it means to be adult and how we become adults and whether being a human at all is a good thing, which I guess is what we explore in the series. But starting with that Peter Pan thing, there was a conversation I had with Noah, but also our amazing costume designer Sutarat, about how far we can take the Peter Pan vibe. So those kind of big flowy sort of play suits, and I really fought for the bare feet. I just
didn't have
asked
to fight hard.
Those dirty Tarantino close-ups.
to get those feet on the table, and it went down really well. And that just is such a joy for an actor, and it feels like a genuine collaboration with everybody, because the feeling of not wearing bare feet, that did so much work for me on set. It makes you feel like you're in your living room rather than it made me feel like I owned everything. So that
You're basically in your pajamas all the time because everything's your home.
Yeah, why would I need to dress up for anyone or put shoes on?
It really singles you out from every other character.
Yeah, for sure.
There's so many little nuggets, references to the past films. I think one of my favorites on the desk, that little bird that's beak goes into the glass and comes up from the first film. It's in a couple other ones. Are there any small details that obviously you probably put that in because you love that shot as well, but any other favorite references or nuggets from past films that you are referencing directly besides broad production design in the series?
Well, I mean, what's the fun if I tell you, right? That's the joy for people. I had more fun with the modern elements of it, the Prodigy logo, which is this teddy bear, but if you look closely at the soldiers, they have an angry bear, right, versus the classic bear, and that level of detail is really critical, I think, to making something that is rewatchable.
Brutal gore, scares, and violence are synonymous with this franchise. Can fans expect that for this series?
Yeah, of course, 100%. That's you got to know what show you're making, right, and there's a lot of layers to this story and a lot of complexity to the storytelling. But every hour, you're going to feel that feeling, right? Which is both, you're watching through your fingers, right? Because of because of the horror of it, and also you're like, oh, that's just the worst thing I ever saw.
So no, I was just going to say we cover all the bases, I think, in terms of gruesome body horror.
So you brought up Fargo, obviously, past work. So what are the benefits of taking a film IP, especially like Alien, where we have several films, and then exploring it through the lens and structure of television with episodes?
Well, from a very early age when I started writing novels, I always saw what I did was being in conversation with the works that inspired me and the authors that inspired me. And, it's an interesting career that I've developed in television for adapting, classic IP and turning it into television shows. Because, I feel like what I'm doing is I'm having a conversation with Ridley and James Cameron and Fincher, and as I felt like I was talking to the Coen brothers and going, oh, that's so great. What, No Country. What about this? How does that make you feel the same way? And so, that's the fun of it is we're all together building this Alien, universe, film after film and show after show. And, what it adds up to the end, it's a collective endeavor, right? I mean, the fact that I've made 51 hours of Fargo and there's a 2-hour movie means that for some people, the show is the only Fargo they've ever watched, right? Or they watched the movie, they saw the first 2 seasons and they're like, I should watch that movie. And then they watch, you know what I mean? But it all kind of fits together into a cohesive whole.
Mm-hmm. Love that. We have a fun one to finish up with. If you guys were faced with an option of either one xenomorph in a room, or a room full of facehuggers, what are you taking?
For me, it's the xenomorph. Like, who wants that thing on their face? Like, let's die with a little dignity.
Let's just get it done.
Yeah.
Faster the better. Good point.
Exactly.
And then Rami's that great sequence in the lab where they're chasing them and they come pouring out the window. That's terrifying.
Yeah, I know. I asked Fede, was it like 6 for the price of 1? Or how did that work?
Yeah. So scary.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for the time, guys. We appreciate it. The show's fantastic. We can't wait to continue watching it. And let's get back to the episode, everybody. All right, we hope you enjoyed that interview. Let's get into breaking down the Alien franchise a few more times. All-time favorite movie, Anthony, from the Alien franchise, though.
I think it's Alien, and as much as I love James Cameron and what he did with Aliens, Ridley Scott, I mean, I can't think of a filmmaker who has such a pedigree in the world of science fiction, making Alien and then Blade Runner.
World building in general, even Legend is just like massive.
So many other filmmakers over the past 30 years have pulled from what he did, not just in the sci-fi genre, but in the war genre and the ancient epic genre. He's really one of the most influential filmmakers of all time, and making Alien for your second movie, that's insane.
Bonkers.
He went from Duelists, about 2 guys getting into duels, to Alien, and then he did Blade Runner. Imagine,
Blade Runner for your third film might be even more impressive as well, because a lot of people, they might be like, oh, was it just a fluke? They kind of got lucky, whatever career it is. Sometimes it's sports. They had a great season, like as a pitcher, but then they fizzle out. It happens to filmmakers as well, but Ridley did not fizzle out.
But so the Alien franchise is still alive because of the vision of those first films. And yes, it's not, yes, he didn't technically get the credit for the screenplay. He's a director of the film, but also he's the one who brought on H.G. Giger on board. He saw his work and said, this is what we need.
Can I fact check you?
Yeah, sure.
I believe when the filmmakers, the producers pitched him, the book for Giger's stuff was there, and they enticed Ridley with Giger's work.
With Giger's work. Okay, maybe so that's the way it went.
Ridley was like, they're like, here's the script. And Ridley's like, yeah, I'm kind of fascinated. But then he started looking at the art by Giger. He's like, you know what? I think I can do this. Because Ridley, all the interviews I've ever watched with him, talking about his films and like the moment where he's like, yeah, I can make this. It's just like, oh, I know how to do this movie. I can figure it out.
I think that is the Gladiator story of they showed him a painting of gladiators and he said, okay, I'll do Gladiator. I believe he saw Giger's work.
You know
beforehand.
what?
We'll have to find out.
We can't fact check right now because we're on the clock, baby.
But it's because of his incredible filmmaking prowess and world building. James Cameron built on it, and the franchise is so interesting because if you think about it, it's nearly had a different director for most films of the franchise. Yeah. Ridley's done 3: Alien, Prometheus, and Alien Covenant, which I think is actually so underappreciated and such a great return to form. But also like Paul W.S. Anderson doing AVP and the directors doing the French director doing Alien Resurrection. There's so many great voices that added to this franchise, which is pretty unique because I can't think of a franchise where every iteration was like kind of different after the James Cameron ones. David Fincher made a movie. So it's this franchise that somehow has survived so many different voices.
And at first, when Alien Earth got greenlit and announced a couple of years ago, I was very skeptical because I always thought, and I've always believed, that the Alien world and franchise, the xenomorphs, the facehuggers, they do best in the seclusion and isolation of deep space, whether it's on a spaceship, maybe a small planet, like Alien 3, but in all the other ideas that almost happen, all like the almost Alien movies that did happen, usually small moons, things like that. And after watching the first episode of Alien Earth, I was like, okay, I get it. This idea will work. It's pretty exciting. And that's how you do it. I know Alien Romulus was something fresh and original, and I loved what Fede did with that. And, bringing the first alien xenomorph back to the fray, taking that original xenomorph that got sucked out through the ship from Ripley at the end of that film, and that's the opening of Alien Romulus.
She thought she got him.
So exciting and so unique and such a great vision. And I like how, like you talked about different visions, we have that, which can exist and coexist simultaneously with Noah Hawley's vision here with aliens on Earth, but also bringing more organisms, not just alien xenomorphs, not just facehuggers, but also different kinds of creatures, expanding the scope of what you can do with these icky creatures. Like these insects in the show, pretty freaking disturbing, discussing what they're going to be capable of, and I can't wait to see going forward the more they can do.
Yeah, Noah came up with a really plausible way to bring the monsters to Earth. It's something that I never really thought I wanted in this franchise, but he came up with an intriguing way that makes sense. Like, okay, I can see it happening, like the delivery system for how the xenomorph and the facehuggers land on Earth. So I like what he came up with. And at the end of the day, again, back on Ridley Scott, his influence is permeating even in this new iteration where Noah Hawley's building on the world building of synthetics and what that means. There are different kinds of synthetics, androids, tapping into kind of the ideas of existence and intelligence in the soul and what it means to be alive that Ridley explored in Blade Runner. You can see a lot of that in the new Alien Earth series, which is a really fun new trend that we got. We got to see a little bit of that with Winona Ryder's android in Alien Resurrection, where we didn't know she was a synthetic until about an hour and a half into that film.
Spoilers!
So that was
an old movie.
Yeah, it's an old movie.
97?
Yeah.
97?
Earlier than that, I think. That's an example of, like, we didn't even know that she was synthetic, just like we didn't know Ash was a synthetic.
Uh-oh.
But I think recently we've been seeing the android synthetics as we know they're already a synthetic right off the bat. I think it's more interesting to explore, can they fool humans? And that hasn't really been explored too much to be designed that way in this franchise.
The theme of what is humanity is definitely going to be explored in this film because the pilot is all we've seen, and like all pilots effectively do, they're setting up what you're about to see. They're starting little breadcrumbs of plot lines that are going to get stretched out and further, and introducing characters that you're going to know and love, and characters you'll probably despise in a good way with great villains, and just kind of putting in little nuggets of foreshadow of things you're probably going to get excited about and see. And exploring what is humanity, consciousness is something that I'm glad you brought up, that Ridley really did with Prometheus and Alien Covenant, specifically with David, one of the best characters, I think, in sci-fi the last several decades, for sure. And I think the best android character or synthetic that's been in the Alien franchise, played by the great Michael Fassbender. I watched those movies just for Fassbender's performance.
So good.
And the hate and vitriol for Prometheus and Alien Covenant, I won't stand for it anymore, man. I can't take it because those movies are so brilliant, I think, especially on rewatches. I think Prometheus, Ridley was very disappointed he didn't get to make his sequel to Alien. He was kind of pissed that he didn't get asked to do it 30 years ago. And I think that was his opportunity to, all right, they're going to let me do a trilogy now to explore all the ideas that have been brewing for such a long time. And I think he did such a brilliant job exploring consciousness, humanity, with the scope of massive intergalactic travel. And it was just so exciting to do that through the lens of David.
Yeah, the Xenomorph, I think, being the greatest movie monster ever put on screen, it was such a great, there was such a great mystery behind what this thing was. And if you think about it, him wanting to explore its creation and the idea that it was created for a purpose makes sense because it is so perfect. The fact that it is a perfect organism, the perfect organism. It makes sense that it was created for a purpose. So I love how he explored that. And then Alien Covenant, I think what he did with the David character was so fascinating. And I love the backstory of what David does in that film. it was such like a disappointment for us that they never were able to make the third film. I was so curious to see what Ridley Scott and his writing team had in store for the third installment of that would have been trilogy. We'll never really see that. I doubt we'll ever get to see that iteration and the extension and finale of that story. But I do think Alien Covenant was a step in the right direction. It got so much hate on its release, but again, I'm telling you, as someone who didn't love it at first, on rewatches, Alien Covenant gets better. It's so interesting. He combined the great philosophies and ideas of Prometheus with the original horror and thrills and world building of Alien. And it was this really great cocktail of those two things that I enjoyed so much. And looks like Noah Hawley is building off of that with his own version.
And with Covenant, I think there are very few filmmakers as they're getting later in their career who are innovators very early on. Obviously, with Alien, Blade Runner, innovative movies, still relevant today. People are still I still watch those movies and I wonder, I can't believe he pulled this off
Still
in
holds up.
1979 or 1982 with both films respectively. And with Covenant, even pushing the boundaries of visual effects and groundbreaking filmmaking in that movie, not just I think with the CGI, and the xenomorph looks terrific in the third act of that film, but I'm talking about David, Michael Fassbender, and I can't remember the other android, the good version of David, the less psychotic one, the second synthetic that Michael Fassbender plays. His name is escaping me right now. But the doppelganger filmmaking used on set for the filmmaking that we've talked about extensively in our Alien Covenant episodes, because we've done pretty much every Alien movie except for, I think, Alien 3 and Alien Resurrections. But still, late in his career, still pushing the bounds of visual effects and filmmaking and doing new things. And it just looked so brilliant, just enhanced and expanding on things that were done in The Social Network with David Fincher. But it's flawless filmmaking. That late in his career, still flawless. He's still the man. He's still one of my all-time favorites.
And I gotta say, in terms of scale and scope, they brought it with Alien Earth. We've only seen the first episode, but there is a huge sequence of some of the biggest scale filmmaking, visual effects, and action that I've seen on TV in a long time. There is the huge, gigantic moment. It was amazing to see on your TV. The cinematic scale was pretty awesome.
And so I think there are a lot of pros and cons when you're talking about film versus TV. What I like about TV, and obviously TV and film have kind of leveled the playing field in terms of actors and their choices of projects they want to do. You know, I think there's still some actors you'll never see on television. You know, you're never going to see Leonardo DiCaprio do a TV show, ever.
He'll go back to sitcoms. That's how he'll end his career with sitcoms again.
But for years and years, film actors never really touched television, maybe for a short cameo here and there. Even though a lot of them got their start in TV, like George Clooney, ER, becomes a massive star. But now, television's become so much more prestige, and the quality has just soared since cinematic television shows in the early 2000s, like Sopranos, just setting the bar and changing the game. Breaking Bad, 2000s. And so I love to see how much studios are investing in their television, as well as the creativity and high production value involved. And this show has massive production value on par with any of the movies in so many different ways. And I think the scale is really exciting with this show. But I think it's great when you get the kind of talent that for so many decades was really mostly reserved for film. Now you're getting that talent in television, which is so exciting.
And I get that. I mean, this has always been a film franchise, but the landscape of media is changing. How people choose to take in stories is changing. We're competing with social media. We're competing with TikTok and YouTube.
Soon, a Xenomorph's going to host a podcast.
Yeah, exactly. There would be the Xenomorph talking to a facehugger.
So what were you thinking when you were sucking on that guy's face?
Yum. So you have to bridge the gap to the audience, and this is a new way to reach a new audience on FX and Hulu. And yes, we grew up always watching these stories on the big screen, but times are changing, and so I think it's the right move to go to the small screen, but we're still getting the big screen adaptations. Fede is doing Alien Romulus 2, so we're going to still get that on the big screen in IMAX. Loved all that stuff. But still, this is how you reach the audience, that those people who aren't always going to the movie theaters. So you can tell these stories to those people who like to watch streamers, who like to watch TV shows. Audiences have changed and shifted over the last just 5 years alone. So I think it's very smart to try and find them again and get them excited about this property.
I'm also very picky with what I watch for television because
same.
we don't have a ton of time to watch TV.
James is the busiest person.
You're a
in
pretty
Los
busy guy
Angeles.
too, man. I mean, how many TV shows do you watch a year?
One.
Yeah, exactly. Like Severance. I mean, you watched Fallout last year.
I watched Fallout.
So
yeah.
we're pretty picky in terms of the television we watch because there are so many options. But I recognize there are great pros to television when it comes to character development, and it's going to be exciting to have main characters in a beloved IP that you'll get to spend so much time with. Even though Sigourney with Ripley, she's in so many movies, we've got so much time spent with her. And on rewatches, I mean, I love just spending time with the characters in the first couple films so much. I think the characters are so great in Alien and Aliens. And I think, Romulus was a great step back in the direction of really relatable characters. And both Romulus and Earth are going with significantly younger casts. I mean, the first Alien film, I believe Sigourney Weaver was the youngest person on set as the cast. But, you have characters who are clearly in their 40s and 50s, and it works so well. Same thing with Aliens. We have some older characters, mostly it seems like people in their 30s,
You got
40s.
the Harry Dean Stanton trucker hat, almost the same thing, but
It's close. It's a little more. It's not so gaudy. It's a little less in your face because it is a cool hat, but this is like a little toned down. But it's interesting to see both Romulus and Alien Earth heading in the direction of younger cast and characters for their franchises because it seems like that's the way a lot of studios are getting new lifeblood into their IPs, getting new audience members in. It's a new era, new demographics of people watching this content. You want to reel them in. So I think it's really interesting. And I think it's working well for both situations.
And we did see some really good gore in the first episode. Now, that's an aspect of the Alien franchise that you always want. As amazing as the storytelling is and as hard-hitting as the action can be, you want some visceral, violent, bloody gore. That's part of what you sign up for when you watch one of these films or now watch this TV series. We got a great tease of some of that in the first episode, and I hope going forward they have some crazy stuff in store for us. They're setting things up. There's going to be monsters in this show, and I hope that it just keeps going hard, pedal to the metal, bloody violence, because that's what you want as a fan of this franchise.
I think Alien 3 gets a bad rap, and I understand the tone that he was going for. It was very bleak, very grim, very desaturated, very wet.
It was a very rough movie. It's on a prison planet, so it's a tough movie. The original plan for Alien 3 was actually pretty intriguing. They originally wrote it and designed it to be set on a wooden planet made out of wood.
So was it the whole planet was made out of wood, or was it like a? I know it was a monk. It's monks. It's like
monks
a monk
live
moon.
there.
Monk Moon sounds like a nightclub.
I mean, it sounds interesting.
Moon
A
monk?
giant planet made out of wood. It's pretty intriguing. But yeah, obviously that never came to fruition.
A planet made by humanity.
Yes, humans made it out of
Because
wood.
I just want to make that clear. It's like they built the planet.
Is wide plank pine polished wood?
After reading,
That sounds pretty interesting. Fede, I think, pulled off a different kind of monster in Alien Romulus much better because that creature design and the performance from the actor, it was scary. Alien Romulus was the first time I've been like scared in an Alien movie in a long time.
Freaked out. Absolutely.
He really pulled it off with that creature design. It was so terrifying and really intriguing looking. I loved that. And it's just like when you thought that the action was over and your hero survived, guess what? There's a new monster cooking that just came out of the oven and he's ready to eat. I loved it.
The easy bake oven timer just went off, and this 8-foot tall, gangly xenomorph human
Giant neck.
face hugger hybrid just came out and is ready to say hi to its mom.
Yeah, and Noah has some new things in store for us. We saw a little
In
hint.
store from us. The boss is just in store. Okay, yeah.
He's fucking awesome guy.
Noah Hawley has something in store from us.
So the monster, at the end of the day, you always need the xenomorph. You always need the face hugger. Absolutely.
100%.
You need the eggs. But, I mean, it's not the first time we've seen new monsters. Alien Resurrection, like we were talking about, and what Fede did, and Noah's got some new things cooking too. I'm looking forward to see what they have designed. Because at the end of the day, you want those scares. And sometimes, man, Alien can just really hit. What's your most underrated moment in the Alien franchise? Most
Underrated moment? That's a really good question. In the entire Alien franchise, any kind of moments?
Take your pick, man. Take your pick. Any moment.
That's a tough question. I wish that I wish Jinxie had a hero moment.
Jinxie?
The cat.
Jinxie the cat.
I mean, what's
You
the cat's
thinking of
name?
Meet the Parents?
Oh. You painted the cat's tail fucker, didn't you?
Yeah.
What's the cat's name?
Cat?
Cat.
Yeah, Cat.
Jonesy.
Jonesy.
I wish Jonesy. Well, it's not an underrated moment, but I think I always wish Jonesy had a hero moment, like pushes the button or
That's
something.
such a Disney thing.
I know. So I think one of the most underrated moments for me, still to this day, I think when people think of like their favorite alien moments, it's like Ripley fighting the Queen in the mechanical suits, or Ripley blasting the xenomorph into space. I think my most underrated moments, because I think they're still a little underappreciated.
He's building this up, guys.
That's
He's
what
stalling.
I do. That's
He's
what
stalling.
I'm not stalling. I'm building.
Let's
It's
hear
called
this
tension.
moment.
See, this is your problem.
5
man.
minutes in,
Every
let's hear
time
the
I'm
moment.
trying to build tension for our listeners, because this is a show.
The thing about moments is like there's so many other moments, and there's gonna be this
Good, you
one
don't understand
moment.
suspense. You don't understand tension, Mr. Filmmaker over there. I'm trying to build it up for the audience, and you just shoot it down.
Let's hear the moment.
And you ruin it every single
Let's
time.
hear the moment.
Well, so let me get back to building it up. So, I think Ripley racing against the clock from the self-destruct sequence in Alien is, I think, one of my favorite parts of the entire franchise, if not my favorite. It's not necessarily her fighting the xenomorph. It's her going through the halls and turning the self-destruct sequence on, and then the timer's going down. We have the ticking clock. Her regretting her decision, trying to go shut the engine, the self-destruct sequence off. And then when she's too late and she can't self-destruct anymore, and the computer's basically like, yeah, you're fucked. And she starts cursing at Mother. And I think that's one of my favorite sequences, is when those tabs start to sink back in and she can't cancel the self-destruct. I think it's one of the best moments that really doesn't get talked about too often, because the xenomorph's not really involved because he's hiding around.
All right, I'm not sure if that's an underrated moment though. I feel like that's a fan loved moment.
I'm just thinking off the top of my head,
let
bro.
me give you an example. I think the ending of Alien Covenant is an underrated moment in the franchise. I thought it was so fun
when
David revealed himself, and you're just like, oh my God, to Shaw. You're like, oh, not Shaw, Captain Watterson's character. I can't remember her name off the top of my head. Because I think that since that movie gets so much hate and it's got middling reviews, I found that ending to be surprising, so exciting, and I was like giggling like with excitement in the theater. And I was like, I cannot wait to see what they have in store next, because it was a fun twist. Like sometimes the twist happens right at the end of the movie. It's one of those. And then he puts her to sleep and he just walks into his lair with all his little baby eggs. I was like, that's a great moment nobody really talks about. And like, I think it's so great. I love it.
That's great. I also love the Lawrence of Arabia reference in Prometheus. There's
Here we
actually
go.
been 2 massive blockbuster films this century that off the top of my head recently that have direct, blatant Lawrence of Arabia references. And so Prometheus, it's with David on the journey, occupying his time, obsessed with Peter O'Toole, his aesthetic, the way he talks, dyes his hair blonde, watches the opening sequence. We see him watching is the trick, William Potter, is not minding that it hurts when he puts out the match with his fingers. So that's one of my favorite Lawrence of Arabia references in a big blockbuster. Can you think of another one? There's another.
In a big blockbuster?
It's
Well,
happened pretty recently.
most of Dune. And
Well, yeah,
then-
no, but I'm talking like a direct reference to
Direct
Lawrence of Arabia.
reference.
Like doing like shooting in the desert, same
trying to
location,
think.
sure.
But I will say that's a great underrated moment.
It's
That's
underrated. Okay,
underrated.
there we go.
That's underrated.
Thank you for the
James
underrated
chose
moment.
the climax of Alien
I
for his
didn't choose-
underrated
no,
moment.
No, I didn't. I didn't choose. Yeah, I did. But it's underrated to an extent because people never talk about it.
I can't think of the Lawrence of Arabia reference.
John Wick 4.
Oh yeah.
John Wick
the
Chapter
opening.
4.
Yeah,
Lawrence Fishburne, the same
Yeah.
exact match cut.
yeah, the opening. That's
So that
great.
when he blows out the match and the sun rises over the horizon of the desert.
Great stuff.
Direct reference to Lawrence of Arabia.
What's your favorite kill in Alien franchise?
That's a really, really good question. Huh. My
Favorite
favorite
kill.
kill. You know, what I've always loved about the Alien franchise, especially with the first film, is, and with great horrors, is you don't always see the kill.
Mhm.
You just see the moment it's about to happen.
Yeah.
And I would probably think that my favorite kill is maybe an alien. I can't remember the character's name, one of the mechanics, when he goes to find Jonesy because he accidentally lets
Harry Dean
Jones.
Stanton.
Yeah, Harry Dean Stanton. He lets Jonesy out of the locker when they're looking for him with the whatever.
Microprocessors. We're looking for micro. If anyone says anything about microprocessors,
The Departed. Minute changes in air density, the thing that Ash makes
Yeah.
from the sensor for motion detection. Micro changes in air density, my ass. And so when he lets out Jonesy, and they're like, "You idiot! Now we're gonna track Jonesy instead of the xenomorph again." And then Harry Dean Stanton's death is great because the suspense and tension, which Anthony knows nothing about, is built so strongly of him looking for Jonesy's inside the garage section, the dangling chains, the water's pouring down. He's sweating, so he takes his hat off and he lets the water pour on him. And then he sees Jonesy, but then Jonesy sees the cat behind him. It's one of my favorite tropes in horror movies is someone sees something behind the character that's about to get killed. And he turns around and he sees the xenomorph just... You don't see him get taken, but it cuts. You hear the scream, the echo, and it cuts right to the other crew members talking about how big the xenomorph and how it just pulled him away. And you don't see the kill. That might be my favorite kill.
That's how you do suspense.
See?
The
You
other
just
time,
let me build it up.
The other time, you were just talking about how movies have moments.
No, that's not.
You built that perfectly. This was a great way to set it up.
This is what I did was I prevented my disruption in my suspense building by bringing it up to you before I started the story.
You were like, "Oh, there are great moments in all the Alien movies."
All right, well,
that was some great moments.
What's your favorite kill in the Alien franchise?
My favorite kill is actually also a kill you don't see, and it's also one.
Copycat.
It's also from Alien.
Copycat.
Because it's all suspense, and it's when the captain goes through the vent system. And
Great.
that's, again, with the beeping of the sensor. We got some people waving. It's an incredible suspense-filled thrill ride. It's, I think, the scariest moment up there in the entire Alien franchise. Maybe second only to the finale in Alien. He's going through the tunnels. Apparently, this beast is right on top of him, so the sensor says. He's looking both sides. He can't see anything. He's got the flamethrower. Panics. Drops the flamethrower so he can climb down the ladder. And then... the alien
xenomorph is supposed to hug.
Yeah, you're looking for a hug. But the first time you see that, it makes you jump, man. It's such a great jump. It's such a great jump scare. It's not one of these BS jump scares we get all the time now, where it's all rising sounds from music and sound design, and then a quick camera cut or a pan. Like this was just built up so well because it's a shot that doesn't move. He gets there, and then the flashlight turns the flashlight that reveals the xenomorph.
It's a torch.
It's so well, the torch. It's so well done.
Flamethrower.
And man, your first few times seeing that film, it just gets you. It's such a great kill.
Yeah, I just bought a new 65-inch TV, which we've been talking about on the show, and it's amazing. It's so big comparatively to how far away from the screen we sit. First movie I watched was my 4K UHD Alien.
Wow.
And it looked terrific. It looked superb. And it's one of my all-time favorite movies in the franchise in general. And I think one of the great aspects of the earlier films especially is, well, all of them in general, is the great practical filmmaking.
Mm-hmm.
You know, putting a guy in the xenomorph suit in that first film. I can't remember the actor's name. He was someone that got discovered in a cafe from one of the producers. And the guy has a very unique body structure where he's like 6'10", but his limbs are just insanely long. And he's like, hey, you want to be put in an alien suit and be in a movie? Basically, I'm
pay you well.
So they actually have a guy in a suit and doing that. And you get to see the xenomorph in the first episode of Alien Earth. You see a xenomorph, which is really exciting.
That's what you want.
And from what I could tell, a lot of it seemed very practical. And there are definitely, like Fede did with Alien Romulus, there are plenty of shots where the xenomorph's CGI, but they also built in Alien Romulus a very sophisticated robotic animatronic xenomorph, which looked so good on camera. And definitely on the close-ups in Alien Earth, you can tell they're using a practical xenomorph on set. I'm not sure to the extent of it because I haven't seen too much behind-the-scenes stuff yet because the show hasn't been released yet. It comes out August 12th on FX and Hulu. But I'm excited to see, when filmmakers, who I'm sure Noah is a massive fan,
Gotta be.
to be able to, it's kind of like when Deveney took on Blade Runner. He's like, I don't know why the fuck I did, like one of my favorite movies, but like for me to take that on, it was like the biggest challenge of my life. I'm sure Noah is a massive fan, like many people are, and it must be such an honor, but also I'm sure he's doing his best to keep the identity of the past films with great practical filmmaking, blending in CGI when you have to, because the scope on the show is massive. But as much practical filmmaking as possible, and I think that's going to pay off for them big time.
Yeah, in terms of being a fan, you can definitely see it with how accurate the set design is in this show, and we get to see in the first episode. We won't spoil what you see, but you are going to see sets that you love and that you can recognize, and also framing and shots that are reminiscent of the original film. And being such a big fan of that first film, watching the first episode, the first few minutes of this was really exciting. Just being like, oh my God, we're back. We're back in the world of Alien. I haven't seen it look like this since the first film.
Well, the Fede and Romulus opening.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think he did a great job, making you feel like you were literally on the Nostromo with that one.
This one, I think they did a great job with set design. You can see the love in how they built it, how they designed the wardrobe. And in terms of an aspect that is always explored in a unique way in any of the Alien movies is the synthetics. The cast in this film, there are going to be multiple synthetics in this movie and in this show, in this TV series of a different kind of synthetic than we've ever seen before. And I like how Noah Hawley is exploring that aspect of the world building and the idea of, because it's being talked about now in the world of extreme future tech of immortality. Can human beings survive past death through technology, through either being put in an AI computer or being put in a robotic body, synthetic, something like that? These are things being talked about. And Noah Hawley explored all of that, these ideas, these themes, the idea of immortality, which is explored in Blade Runner in those films, and inserting it into this film, I think is really interesting.
Yeah, and it's not even just like movies about future tech and current conversations. Even a movie like Get Out is a film where you're talking about and exploring, taking the consciousness and technically the soul of somebody and putting it in a different body. The same thing's happening here. It's really interesting where I think that's why he came up with the concept, or I wonder if it's his pitch. You know, we've seen xenomorphs and facehuggers 10 times. You know what I mean? We've seen it so many times. Now, what do you do that's different? You make the synthetics different. Of course, you have the xenomorphs back and the facehuggers back, but also now more creatures, more aliens. Weyland-Yutani, corporate interests, still strong and prevalent, and will be a major theme of this entire series going forward, because it's always been a strong theme. You know, I always look at Weyland-Yutani as the true villains of the Alien franchise. Yeah, the xenomorphs are terrible, killing machines, but
They're just animals.
it's not their fault they were created, but they were created because of the desires of corporate culture and corporate greed and trying to explore the universe and colonize and get as much wealth as possible and risking dangerous situations and putting people in perilous situations just to get an organism back to Earth to study, to develop and create something profitable out of, whether it's a weapon or a medication or a vaccine. And so I like how Noah's also maintaining that corporate presence here.
And we've been big fans of FX since the early days, back when like it was with Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
The
And those
Shield
shows.
was
The
FX,
Shield,
right? Yeah.
The Shield. And there's an actor in this show that's been in the FX family forever, and that's Timothy Olyphant, because he had Justified.
Oh, Justified was so good.
I love Justified so much.
It's still on air. I think they just did a season.
They just did a new season. They did a new anthology season, one season separate from the rest of the story, Primeval. And I love Olyphant in that role. And so seeing him in this series is so much fun. And he's got, talking about Blade Runner, an absolute vibe and appearance. It's so similar to Rutger Hauer in Blade Runner.
Roy Batty.
Roy Batty. It's definitely like a play on Roy Batty. And so being able to see like a veteran actor that we love so much in this world, I think it was like super fun for me, just because I'm such a fan of his.
Yeah, he's an awesome actor, and he's always been so good. And one of my favorite parts of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was seeing him working with a filmmaker like Tarantino and really just chewing up great scenery with Leo DiCaprio, one of the best all time. And then to see him really get into the creative juices of an actor and creating a very unique character with the character design, maybe referencing also David in Prometheus and Alien Covenant with the blonde hair as well. But definitely when we were watching the episode, you were like, dude, it's like Blade Runner, it's synthetics, it's really cool. But man, he seems to be bringing his A game. And I think right off the bat, off the first episode, Olyphant's probably my favorite character right now.
There's a lot of mystery behind his role.
Yeah.
Exactly who he is, what he is.
Yeah.
It's hard to figure him out.
Yeah, but you're right. He's been in the FX family for a while, and
Love Justified.
he's
so
been
good.
chewing up. He's been cooking for years. But
Maybe he's hiding a pistol in that pocket.
But overall, the Alien IP is just so beloved to us. We have like a mini shrine to Alien
Yeah,
in
it's
our
pretty
living
intense.
room. It's
Yeah.
pretty fun. So many posters. We have face huggers. I love the IP so much. One of my all-time favorite movies, top 4, is Alien, and I'm excited to see the future of the Alien IP with Alien Romulus 2, but also now with Alien Earth on FX, Hulu, August 12th. Thank you so much for tuning into this special podcast. Thank you, Hulu, FX, for having us at Comic-Con. It This is so exciting. Take care, everybody.
See you next time.
FX's Alien Earth is all new Tuesdays on FX. Stream on Hulu.